Okay, so we are, like I said, COMP308, and I apologize for the technical issues this morning. We are week 1, lesson 1, part 1. And we're talking about emerging technologies. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about front-end technologies at the beginning. That's the first piece. I'm going to show you a syllabus more completed next week. The syllabus we have, which is fine, it still covers most of the things that we're talking about. It just needs a little bit of updating because some of the things that we're doing is a little bit different. Like, for example, some of the course objectives are, we're going to talk about rich internet frameworks, right? Or APIs, if you will. And the word, even the whole idea of rich internet frameworks, RIA frameworks, is something that we're moving away from. We're not really talking about that anymore. It's not something that we discuss as a kind of like more of a common term. So Ajax-enabled stuff, everything is Ajax-enabled these days. And if anything, we're moving into this more of a JavaScript world. We're moving away from PHP. That's something we've been moving away from. Like before, I would say over the last course of years, PHP was a big one. PHP stacks, right? The AMP stack, the WAMP stack, the LAMP stack, all these Apache, MySQL, and PHP stacks were very popular. And now we're moving away from those things. And that's what this course is all about. What are the new web technologies that are out there? That's what we're going to be talking about. So one of them is, of course, Node, right? Node.js. Everything is going to be done with JavaScript. JavaScript is the new, if you will, popular language, right? Even though it's an ugly language, right? If you think JavaScript, you think prototyping. It's not class and the traditional class-based way of thinking, right? And if that's the case, then we've got to move away from prototyping, especially with ECMAScript 6 that's coming out this year, or apparently coming out this year. We're moving away from traditional prototyping and moving back into the whole class idea, class and objects, and so on, the way it's traditionally done. So JavaScript, and from not just a front-end interactivity tool or programming script, but also as a back-end stuff with Node.js is something that we're moving into. So the first probably 3 weeks, week 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, is all going to be about front-end stuff. How do we do a responsive web design? How do I put together a website? Now, who knows about web design? You guys should know something about it, right? You guys should know things about HTML5, yes?
Yeah.
Some CSS3, I would guess, right? Maybe a little bit of JavaScript, no?
Yeah.
Enough that you would be able to program with JavaScript?
Yeah.
Can you make a game?
Yeah. We've done it.
Web game programming?
No, it's
Advanced web design? And you do a little bit more JavaScript with web game? What game framework did you use? Canvas drawing okay, so I have another course that we're doing called Web Game Programming, which is COMP307. I do that on Mondays, right? And we do a full game. That's all we do for that course. So this kind of connects with that course in some ways, because one of the things I want to talk about with you is TypeScript. How do I use TypeScript with Visual Studio 2012, 2013, so that way I can create almost an object-oriented environment for my when I program with JavaScript. So we're going to talk about TypeScript. So one of the things, one of the learning objectives you're going to have, is that yours?
Yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. But we're going to talk about some stuff that we did with object-oriented, how we do object-oriented JavaScript with TypeScript. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Now, eventually, there's going to be a course here at the college that's pure JavaScript, a whole JavaScript course from A to Z, with prototyping and everything else. But for now, we don't have that. So we're going to go with these disparate courses, these different courses, the advanced web stuff, this emerging technologies course. It's going to give you a little bit more, and then this other web course. Who's in on the game side? Some of you guys are on the game side, so you're on the game side. Anyone else on the game side? What about the software development side? Are the rest of you on the software development side? All right. So that's the challenge. It's going to be, I don't want to give you all game or whatever. Adobe Air, it's cool, and there's some really cool applications we can build with Air still, but really done by the wayside. Like, we don't do a lot of that anymore. And same thing with Flex. Flex and ActionScript 3, which comes from Flash. I mean, Apple was kind of the leader to saying that Flash is dead. Flash is dead. They keep telling us that. So we don't use Flash when we do web applications. It's not really true. Flash is an IDE, right? Flash is a very well-developed IDE, and there's different places and reasons to use Flash. Now, we won't be using Flash in this course, right? Because it doesn't make any sense anymore. However, Flash Builder in ActionScript 3 is really cool, right? And it can do a lot of stuff with that. But nowadays, if I was going to do things, building interfaces, web interfaces, interactive interfaces, I would use Canvas again, just like you guys did in that advanced web course, right, to me. So there's some really cool APIs that you can use to build UIs with Canvas, and I would probably use something like Create.js, because Create.js, it's kind of an API that works on top of Canvas and gives you a lot of control that is very similar to Flash. So we may do a little bit of stuff with Create.js, that whole framework. And we won't be doing games because that's handled in another course, but we might be doing some interactive UIs that we would be doing with that. Silverlight is dead. So that's something we're not going to be doing. This is a course that needs revamping a little bit, and we're not going to be doing Silverlight. Silverlight won't be something that Microsoft is going to be pursuing anymore. So we're not going to be talking about that too much. It's more in terms of how do I program things for the Windows UI. And as you know, if you guys haven't heard the announcements already, Microsoft is going to be developing Windows 10. Windows 10 is around the corner for most people, right? Some of you might be bleeding edge people. You'll buy Windows 10 and try it out. Some people will say, whoa, Windows 7 is still okay, right? And that's okay too. But Windows 10 is going to be something where Microsoft is going to be focusing to build applications, right? And they're going to move away from that Windows 8 Metro-based kind of application tiles so much, because you can do that with XAML and so on. And programming with the same kind of web technologies that you know today, JavaScript and HTML5, CSS3, and so on, they're going to be moving away from that and moving towards a different kind of interface design. So we're waiting really for that to happen. And they're also talking about creating almost like this open source framework for us to work with for the first time ever. Like, when has Microsoft had anything open source? Actually, Microsoft is usually the antithesis to open source, right? You know, that's why they get pirated so much, right? Because they don't have any open source. Well, that and other things. So we're going to move away from that. We're not going to do that. Cloud computing, we got to talk about. That's one of our things we need to talk about. For example, cloud services like Amazon Cloud Services, S3, as well as Google Cloud Services, right? That whole Google is very powerful. So we're going to talk about those kind of things as well. So we need to talk about Node. We need to talk about from a back end technology. NoSQL, we're going to be talking about that for sure as well. I think we need to hit that as well, because again, we're moving away from MySQL and moving into something that's front-end based, something that you can do with JavaScript. So what am I going to use? MongoDB, probably something we're going to hit for sure in this semester. And we might have a guy that comes in from Microsoft to talk about Azure a little bit, because Azure is another cloud computing service that Microsoft is pushing, right? So again, he might come in. He might tell you a whole different story. He might say, oh, Azure, we're not really focusing on Azure anymore, because that's how quickly technology is changing. Right? So again, when we talk about emerging web technologies, we're talking about Web 3.0, if there is such a term. Probably not really that term. I haven't heard it used in the industry so often, but we're going to move towards that. Again, so let's think about this. So for the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about what's your favorite. Can you tell me what your favorite browser is? And we're going to do a little poll that I'm going to do with my stuff. I'm going to set up a little poll for you. So what's your favorite browser? Hold on a second. Don't tell me. Because I want you, we're going to do this kind of stuff all the time, right? Don't say Chrome, because some people might say other things, right? So it might be Chrome. I'll put Chrome at the top, right? Come on, how about that IE? Let's put IE in there, right? Hold on. How about Firefox? That's not bad. Firefox. Safari. Opera? Sure, I'll put Opera in. What other technologies are there out there? I think that covers it, right? Which one? No. Well, they're coming up with something new. Yeah, which is something that I like. So let's leave it like that. We'll create this thing. So if you want to join me on the survey, you can join me at pollev.com/learn, or you can text learn to 37607. Right, to join me on this poll. All right. So you guys can see that. I'll move out of the way. So just, well, little snitch is telling me that he wants an update, and I'm going to say skip this version, right? Learn to 37607. You should get a response that says you've joined Tom on this thing. So you guys start answering. Now I gotta put it together when you guys are ready. And there we go. So A would be Chrome, B would be Firefox, B IE, C Firefox, B Safari, D Opera. Kind of a live poll. So there's not all of you have answered yet. We're gonna do this kind of stuff more often, okay? So I want you to get used to this live poll that we're gonna be doing as we go through, right? Because I want you guys to, I want to get your feedback a lot on stuff. So learn, you're gonna type in capital, learn, capitals to 37607, or you can go to pollev.com/learn. Let me just move my mouse. There you can see that. So pollev.com/learn, and you can go there. You can do it with your browser if you don't want to text me. Just put it in the browser. So some people like Firefox. Firefox is a really cool tool for from a debugging perspective. I don't see anybody liking IE. Come on, who likes IE? But you don't have to be afraid. It's anonymous, right? How about Safari? Safari's pretty cool. That's some pretty cool. Oh, some more Firefox users, right? It does, but the new version of Firefox is pretty cool. The new one is much better than before. So we got a couple of users. This is good. I'm going to close the poll off. Oh, I got one IE. Yay! I got someone who likes IE. Okay. I'm going to close the poll off for now. Another really interesting thing is when you look at, if I look at frameworks, one of the things I like to look at is when I talk about stats, is I want to look at something called gs.statcounter.com. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before. And I'll put, these are actual real world stats. I'll put this up here so you can see. Maybe I can make it so that I can make this a little smaller. There we go. And if you notice, from a worldwide perspective, Chrome is #1 right now. It's 42% market share, right? So when we build internet applications, it's okay to think, hey, Chrome is cool. But look at #2. IE is still in there with 25% market share. So we can't really discount IE, even though we don't like it necessarily. Firefox, Safari, and poor Opera is way down here at 1.1%. But this is from a worldwide perspective. Let's take a look at some other things. Like an example would be North America. Because I think this is more relevant to us than worldwide, right? Because this is where we want to. Now this is from June to August of 2013. Let's change the time frame, right? Because now we're kind of into Jan of 2015, right? So let's go from Jan of 2014 for the year that we have right now to Jan of 2015. Right? So I think that's more relevant to us as we move forward, right? So I was looking at a previous time. And when the graph updates, you'll see how it looks. It's a little bit different than you would have expected. So these stats counters, the stuff that we want to do with stat counters and things of this nature is to understand when we build an application, as an example, what's the right thing, what's our target audience, right? I'm not going to build an application for Opera, right? Although it probably would work with Opera. I'm not going to build it specifically for Opera. Opera's not even on the chart, right? Definitely Chrome is up there in all of its glory, 35% in North America. I've also included some other things. 360 safe browser, right? Like the Xbox 360, that's up there. That actually made like the top 5, right? Let's see if I can kind of modify it. So I don't care about console because there's not that many of them, obviously. I do care about mobile and tablet and desktop, right? And you know what? I want to break it down by browser version as well. So there's also some earlier versions, which is, I think, some of the stuff we want to see from an HTML5 perspective, right? Because some of these earlier versions, they support, what they're doing is they support different features, right, than our newest version. So when we build an internet application, we want to use this idea of rich internet applications. We have to make sure what is supported. And some of these things, you'll see what the most popular ones are, and it'll surprise you when it updates. There it is. So if you notice, iPhone, right? It says iPhone 0 is 10%, right? IE 11, 9%. That's like the top one, second one between iPhone. And it's interesting that the iPhone browser itself has 10% market share, right? The same amount almost as IE, IE 11, right? Which is 9%. This is, again, in North America only. Safari iPad, which is interesting, 6.5%, right? Chrome for Android, 6%, right? So we have a lot of mobile browsers that are coming up on top nowadays, and which tells you the trend from a mobile perspective. This is why it's so darn important per browser, the type of browser version. Now, there's also this big other one, which is like a lot of other different ones, right? But it's really important to understand the kind of where we're going from a mobile perspective. A lot of these mobile browsers are coming out on top. And if they're coming out on top, why am I only going to target desktop from an application perspective? It makes no sense. That's why we got to talk about responsive design. If you guys don't know responsive design with emerging technologies, then we haven't taught you anything. You need to know this, right? If you're doing any kind of web application development, responsive design is the way to go. The other thing I like to look at is HTML5test.com, right? Now my browser, I'm using Chrome, and it's kind of scoring 512 out of 555 points, right? And what that means is they kind of measure, the ability for you to use the latest and greatest HTML5 and CSS3 technology, right? And if you notice, it kind of check marks the ones that our browser covers. So if I'm using Chrome, and 512 out of 555 is pretty cool. Well, you know what? I'm in a virtual machine. I'm also running. I'm just going to just turn this off for now. I'm also running Windows 8, right? So here I've got my my Chrome and Windows 8, right? So this should be the same version, right? So here's HTML5test.com and Windows 8, 512, no problem, right? How about what if I run it in IE? Here's IE, right? Our lovely IE, right? What does it score here, right? 512, 376, right? So this is probably why, some people are saying, well, why does IE suck so much, right? Well, it doesn't suck. It's just that it has a select number of features when it comes to supporting HTML5. But we know IE is one of the most common web browsers out there. So we got to be careful as to what we serve up to our clients, which a lot of them are going to be IE. So we can't discount IE 11. Now, if you were going to ask me, should I support IE 6, I would say no, with a resounding no, right? Even IE 7 would be probably something that would avoid, or even IE 8. I would go far as to say, you know what, if you can support IE 9, I'd be happy, right? Because let's face it, if you're not using IE 8 or IE 9, there's some issues, right? Like you're using an older computer. And most people aren't using that kind of stuff. They're using mobile technology, like we saw, and something at least as old as IE 8. Okay, so that's this one. Let's check out Firefox, because some people love Firefox too, right? And I'll do this we're doing this in Windows 8, 455 out of 555, right? What about my phone, right? Like I've got the latest, iPhone 6, right? And I'm going to go into Chrome. Why don't you go and do your phone and go to HTML5test.com, right? And here with Chrome, with my Windows or my iPhone 6 is 427. What do you got there?
120.
120. What kind of phone do you got, buddy?
Windows.
Is that a Windows phone?
Yeah.
Jesus, man! Right? Get a new phone. Right? So I got 427 with my phone, right? So that means it's pretty good. 497. Which one's that? Nexus 5. So more even a better one than a better version of Chrome than I have on my iPhone 6, right? So you see that at the end of the day, right? I mean, I would run Chrome. If I ran Safari, let's do it on Safari on Safari. Let's see if what I get on Safari with my. Again, it's just a score, right? And on HTML. I'm good. I'm good, Tom. HTML5 test. I get 440 as well. So 440 is the Safari browser on iPhone 6 and iPhone in general, right? What do you got?
Yeah, 497.
Well, this is on Chrome on my Samsung.
On Chrome,
Yeah,
right?
the Samsung browser got 473.
Yeah. So again, it's just the ability for your phone to have, and your browser is different. Like you got 404, right? Here's my 440, right? It tells you that there's different capabilities from an HTML5 perspective for things like Canvas, for things like drag and drop, all that kind of stuff. There's another really cool website that I use, which is caniuse.com, right? Which is something that you should check out as well. So I'm in Windows 8, and if I go to caniuse, I believe is what it's called, .com, it tells you from, as an example, what's supported. If I want to go into Canvas, so here's basic support for Canvas. Well, if you notice across browsers, IE8, I would say, that's why I told you, IE9 is probably what I would target for nowadays from a modern browser perspective, right? Because it makes sense that I would use IE8, right, or 9, over IE8 because IE doesn't support Canvas. And if you don't support Canvas, that's a good indicator nowadays that in many cases it won't be supported, the stuff that you want to do. So if you notice some of the other stuff, it's all green, even Opera Mini, right, which supports Canvas, iOS Safari, so it all supports Canvas. You can make games for iOS and stuff as long as you use Canvas. But there's going to be some things, like if you want to use some kind of technology as an example that you have an idea that you want to do some kind of drag and drop, well, it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense that you would work on iOS Safari, right? Why would you, from a context, a usability perspective, why would I want to use, drag and drop on a mobile browser? Maybe that doesn't make sense. So that's why they don't support it, right? Not because they can't support it, but it's a different tooling, it's a different setup. My viewport is a lot different than it would be here if I was using a desktop. So again, we're talking about front-end stuff right now and what influences our decision to choose APIs and technologies that we're going to use in our web development, right? And these are a couple tools that I have, and I'm going to put other ones up there for you to test stuff out. The other thing we want to do is when we start testing, I'm just going to drop out of here and I'm going to go into, I'm going to go back to Chrome for a second, right? When we start testing different technologies, and I'm going to go into viewports or responsive. Let's go to responsive. No, let's go viewports. I was right the first time. There's another site called the Responsinator, right? Now it's hard to see here on the board here, but you can see it better on the YouTube video. Responsinator is a kind of a really cool site. If I want to look at something like Tim Hortons, which recently got bought out, .com, right? And I want to see what it looks like on a mobile, from a mobile perspective. What this does is it allows us to see, this viewport, what a normal phone would look like, what we would normally see, almost like a little bit of an emulator. Not quite though. There's a difference between using Responsinator to see what the Tim Hortons website is going to look like than actually seeing it on your phone. The best way to test a mobile site or a functionality on mobile would be on your phone, your actual device. That's the best way. Second best way is some kind of simulator if you don't have the phone handy. Like if I don't have an Android phone, a Galaxy 5 or whatever, and I want to test on a Galaxy 5, I can go to a friend of mine, I can borrow his phone, right? And say, hey, can I borrow your phone? Let me check out my code on your phone. I can do that. Or what I might want to try and do is I might want to try and use something like a simulator or some kind of something online like this, like Responsinator, to kind of take a look at a website, what it would look like in this particular case. Now, how is Tim Hortons serving this website to me, right? Is Tim Hortons serving this website by using media queries? What kind of technology on the back end? Well, we don't know. We're going to have to guess. But if you notice, they still have a slider, right? So they still have something that works on a, and of course, it'll take us to the to the desktop site here. But the idea here is that all the same kind of technologies that we would expect to see on a desktop, a lot of them are available on the mobile version. If you notice, you have this hamburger. That's what I like to call it, right? Sandwich. Some people like to call it the 3 lines, right? And I kind of like this, and I kind of don't, right? Whenever you see these 3 lines on your device, you're like, could they have designed this a little differently? 3 lines to me means there's another menu, and if I have to have a menu that's hidden, am I really thinking about the right context, right? From when I'm serving up the content, am I really doing it right? And that's a question that's being asked now by more modern designers. They're saying, should I have the hamburger there, right? And you're seeing it, it's a very common thing, because what it does, it hides other content that you can kind of bring in. So theoretically, if I click the hamburger, right, then I'm going to get a menu which is similar to having, kind of like menu items. And again, for some of this stuff, maybe some of this stuff isn't really applicable on a mobile device. So it's not just a viewport exercise. It's a usability exercise. Should I, even if I can, but should I have this on my website? That's the question that you should ask yourself. Maybe the mobile website should exclude certain pieces of information because you need it for a reason. There's got to be a reason why we're serving you up a web-enabled site. And most of the time it's because you want pertinent key information from that site. And if you want to go to the full site, there should be a link somewhere on the bottom that says, go to the full site, see the full site. And that's kind of best practices, if you will. Right? Where is it? Was it there? Did it say that?
No, I'm just saying.
It should say that, but no, here they're doing there's all these tweets and everything else that they have here as well, right? And for Facebook, right? And I kind of like that, but the idea here is that you should be able to get to kind of the desktop link if you really want it, right? Now here they don't give you the option. Another really good example of a site that works nicely on desktop, but it's kind of weird on mobile is the LCBO. Oops, if I can actually spell it properly. Not there. Okay, let's go to Responsinator again. It's not letting me. Let's just go back to Responsinator and go from there. If I can actually spell this time. LCBO. So again, if we go to it properly, and this is something that's local, I'm trying to hit on these local sites. And of course, it took me to what? Another site way down here. So here I hit English, and if you notice, there's the hamburger again, right? Right? I like the hamburger, it's neat. But do I really care to look at the same kind of links that I would have on my desktop site on my mobile? And that's why they have the mobile app, right? They have a mobile app that you can download for iOS and Android. Not a problem if you were going to search for products at the LCBO. Again, if you notice on the bottom here, do they really have a section that says, hey, take me to the whole site. Take me to the big site. Because a lot of this stuff here, there's a lot of things in here, like store locator might be useful, because if I want to find a store, that might be a useful scenario on my device. Because maybe I want to find my beer, right? And so I want to use my device with GPS to find me the closest LCBO. That's a good use, right? But for wine and spirits and beer and all that kind of stuff, unless I can physically search the content, like the inventory for that particular store, it doesn't make any sense for me to get all my information here on my mobile. Not all of it. There should be some kind of other way of getting it. So again, it's not just can I do it. The question should be should I do it, right, on mobile. Right? So before we get into responsive design, these are the kind of questions you should kind of ask yourself. If you've got a Mac, and I use my stuff on a Mac, not that you should, because some people are anti-Mac, right? Like the Antichrist. They don't like Mac because they think Mac is like the big bad company, like the evil empire on Star Wars, right? And that's totally cool. But if you've got a Mac, you can always do something like, if you run Xcode, it comes with an iOS simulator, right? One of the things I'm going to put up for you is something called Mobilizer, though, which is an Air app. We talked about not building Air apps anymore. But it actually works on both Mac or cross-platform, anything that supports Air. So if I choose to go to Tim Hortons here on this device here, let's take a look and see what. Look, I'm gonna simulate an iPhone 5 or an iPhone 4 white, an old iPhone 4. Then again, I can go and kind of get almost like a simulated view of what it would look like, and I can do a click through from a prototyping perspective. Oh, there's the hamburger, right? To see what it would look like here, which is a little bit better than Responsinator in some ways, because Responsinator gives us an online view, and this is kind of the same thing, but it's using an Air app. Again, best case scenario would be a real device, right, when we're doing our testing, right? Again, this would be available here on the PC side. Here's Mobilizer on the PC side. So it's available both on Mac and PC. It used to be from springbox.com. They don't have it anymore, so I'm going to put it up on My Centennial for you. All right. So if you want to download it when we do our testing, as we move forward, I'm going to put together this, this Mobilizer is what it's called, up on My Centennial. You can download it and install it for Air. As long as you can put an Air app on your system, which you should be able to do. If you download the proper drivers, there should be no issues. In this particular case, they have a an online version of this Air app called it's asking me to upgrade, and I'm going to say no, update later. They have an online version, but the usability, the functionality is limited, right? So that's why I'm recommending that we're gonna put it up on My Centennial for you so you can use it, right? And again, this is one of our testing apps that we're going to use. Okay. So again, let's talk about this responsive design. So in order for me to tell you that this is something that we're going to be talking about, I got to enable you to use technologies to do this. So there's different approaches to responsive design. One of the approaches would be program it from scratch. Use CSS3 media queries, right, to kind of listen for different viewport sizes and change the content, my design. So I have my semantic HTML, which we're going to go over next week a little bit, right? Here's my content, and I'm going to reformat my content with CSS3 using CSS3 media queries and pipe it out to a different viewport according to a different size, right? So we could do it from scratch like that. Well, again, I'm thinking as a developer, and from a developer standpoint, I don't want to recreate the wheel. There's a lot of frameworks out there that'll do it for me, Bootstrap being one of them, right? So why wouldn't I use something like an API like Bootstrap, which is free and open source, if you think about it, or something like Foundation, which is what I'm going to be talking about next week a little bit more, to do responsive design. So let's go. I'm going to preview Foundation for you. Let's take a look at that. Okay. I'm going to do this on the PC side, but it works equally well on the Mac. And it's foundation.zurb.com is where I want you to go, right? And these people at Foundation, the Zurb Foundation actually, they have come up with a framework, which is a front-end responsive framework that allows you to kind of create responsive designs, right, without coding a single thing, with using HTML5 markup, right? And some of you might say, well, hold on, I'm a developer. I'm a developer. Why do I want to use HTML5 markup? I want to code it myself. Okay, go ahead, right? You can do that. You can choose to do that. But there's a lot of frameworks out there that are already done, and they're ready to go, and they're good. Here's a question for you. We just did an online poll, right? How come I didn't build my own online poll website? You can text to it, all that functionality. I can resell it. That's a good idea, right? It's already done. It's been done 20 times to Sunday, right? It's been done. It's called Audience Response System, right? So why would I build my own, right? If there's something that's really good and free and open source out there already that I could use for myself. That's the question I want you to ask yourself as developers. It's not that I can do it. It's should I do it, right? If I can do things faster, that means I can develop something for the customer faster, which means I can get paid faster, which is really where you want to go, right? As an independent developer, or even when you're working for a company, the company, it's all going to be based on do it right the first time when you're working for the real world. They don't want you to rework your stuff over and over again. If you do too much rework, you know what that means? It means you're not a good programmer. That's what they mean, right? So you want to reduce your rework. That's one of their KPIs, the key performance indicators that they look at, right? And the other thing is, how can I do this rapid application development, right? How can I do that, right, with out completely reusing stuff that's out there that's not mine. There'd be an argument for this with WordPress. Some of you might say, well, hold on. WordPress maybe is an emergent technology, right? Because WordPress is like so popular these days, right? And it's something that everyone should know a little bit about, because if you don't know WordPress, then you can't make, there's a way of making really quick money that you just don't know about, right? Because WordPress, again, and this is where I would say it's between me talking about it and not talking about it, because WordPress uses that AMP stack we talked about before, which is going by the wayside, right? It's using Apache, MySQL, and PHP primarily for WordPress, right? It's out there, and you can put a WordPress site together in 10 minutes, right? And sell it to the customer, right? So if I was going to do that, if I was going to say rapid application development, if you were to say, Tom, I want to use a WordPress site, in some applications that might be the right answer, right? Here in this course, though, I'm going to ask you not to use WordPress, okay? I don't want you to use frameworks like WordPress, Drupal. I don't want you to use frameworks like that, especially a PHP framework. We're going to move away from that. We're going to be talking about MVC frameworks a little bit, right? Because we need to talk MVC. If you haven't talked to them, if you don't know what MVC is, Model View Controller, and you leave Centennial, there's a problem. We need to talk about that, right? So that's another thing we're going to be talking about in this course. Let's look at Foundation for 1 second, right? Why I'm choosing Foundation. And I could have chosen anything. I can choose Foundation. I can choose Bootstrap. There's many opportunities for us to use this. If I go to Docs and I want to know how to use Foundation, it kind of gives you a quick setup, right? It says, well, look, to do Foundation, you got to download, the Foundation framework. And what it does is it presents this 12-column grid, right? So I've got this 12-column grid here that I'm going to use for Foundation. So when I lay out my stuff, right, I've got 12 columns. I can allocate 6 columns, all with HTML5 using CSS classes. That's all we're going to do. That's built into the Foundation framework. I can allocate my content according to the columns, and when depending on the viewport scenario, it'll adjust the viewport according to what the columns that I allocate. That's really it in a nutshell, right? On top of this, once you know the grid for Foundation, and once you start using it, what you can say is I can say, well, for large type screens, there's a split for large screens, there's a split for medium screens, tablets, and there's a split for small screens. And depending on how many columns you're allocating, it'll be the same number of columns for each screen size. So that's the scenario in a nutshell for Foundation. Same thing actually that you do for other frameworks. So we'll look at that in more detail next week. Okay, so I know we kind of started late, but I want to take a 5-minute break, kind of to talk about, kind of give you a chance to do a bio break. I'm not sure if you've ran from one class to the other, and then we'll resume in about 5 minutes. Okay, so go ahead, and I'll stop recording for now.